And we're live. So welcome to this evening's meetup. We sort of said, Philip, that you were gonna show stuff, but then you said just before that you ran into some issues. So we're gonna postpone that one and take a look at the issues afterwards to see what you have. And so I guess it would be a good opportunity to talk about the things that we loosely talked about yesterday with the actions, pulling the actions into or accessing the left side actions from code, because the left side actions, yes, let's just pull up an example to yeah, I'm gonna share my screen, of course. Entire screen. Like that. And so first I was doing whenever we do something new, we should have an example that's easily consumed so that anyone can try it out themselves. And the way that we want to do that going forward is to put them in this tab, the live view tab. If we are in the designer and we press the live view, there's buttons here and you have the assets TK, and here we have the components to choose from, and you can simply download that from our GitHub repository. And once you downloaded it, depending on version, this will of course update every time there's a new version, and you will find the mergeable models here. So the idea is to put them over here, but this is so new that I haven't been able to check in the example yet. I'm working on the example, and the example is the file that I have open here. It's in my repo MDriven components, left side actions runtime access demo. So that's the name of this example, and this example just has a very small model with very few view models, just something to seek for the class 1 objects, and something to show this. And the reason for this small model was just an excuse to add actions to the left side, like this: add X, add Y, add Z. And so what this action does is just taking the attribute 1 and adding an X behind it. So the idea is to, when I run this and select here, if I press one of these actions, it should do what it says. So like this. And of course this is what we refer to as the left side actions, and it's a sort of have become a signature of an MDriven application that this is always here. And why is it always here? Well, firstly, it's not always here. It's if you want it to be here, but it's extremely practical. It's a good way to collect logic to work on your information, and it's very easy to define actions that targets a specific type, and whenever you see that type in a UI, the action is available for you without any further work. So that's practical, and of course you don't always want it, so you can opt it out, etc. So that's the story behind the left side menu. But if I turn on edit mode here and say that I don't want the left side actions here, so that's what we call the sidebar here. If I turn that off, yeah, now this hasn't synced, so I'm gonna make sure that I'm on the right view. So this is sort of off. I don't know what happened. I'm gonna sync it again. This is sort of one action behind. I'm gonna see that this is running correctly. So I'm going to Seeker. Yeah. So and now I'm going into the document form, and here's the left side actions. And if I were to turn off the sidebar, just checking what's acting up. Now I'm gonna restart the browser here to make sure that I'm so now I managed to turn off the sidebar here. Sort of there's something out of sync, but I can't really finger it. So this says document class, but that's not right. Okay. Well, this wasn't what I was supposed to show, of course. I'm heading over here instead to, I'm not sure what's going on with that. Seek for class 1. This one should have the sidebar, so that I can go into the other one, the document class, and this one should have the menu bar but hide the sidebar. And I'm going to save that and head over here. Now when I search, I can go into showing this document, and now the sidebar is hidden. Of course, that might be, and if I turn off edit mode by flipping this might be more to your liking, not very much MDriven signature lefts, only this part, but we could remove that as well. The problem is that we don't have access to the actions, add X, add Z, add Y. And of course we could compensate that by defining action columns, adding buttons all over the UI, and that has been the main option for doing this now. Oops. Maybe like this, add a column, an action column, and having this action yeah, of course I would need it to go into the grid instead, so being in the context of the grid, and this action should do the add X, for example. So that way we could get some of the actions back in the context of a specific row. So if I push that, but that's a very tedious way, that you need to find a space for everything, and maybe there should be a way with reason to access the contents of the left side menu programmatically. And I think it was Bengt Henriksson that mentioned that he would like something like that initially. So what we did was to make that possible, and then you could sort of pour out the actions anywhere you like. And just as an example, I'm going to pour them out in a small list view below here. So I'm starting by adding a generic column that actually gonna be the list of the actions that I want. And this is the self VM variable that holds everything specific to this view model. And this has a new member called list actions. And this list actions takes the name of the nesting that I want. So of course I could loop over all the nestings. So the nestings in this case is the first one, the root one, is document class 1, and the second one is class 2. So these are the names of the nestings. So what I want to do is take all of class 2's nestings. So here I'm supposed to enter a string, and then initially we just had it like this, that you put class 2 here, but then that doesn't feel right, because it forces you to sort of re-mention class 2 as a string, and that might, if you rename this at a later date, this doesn't match up, and it's hard to track what you mean with this. So managed to put yet another property on the self VM called nestings. So the nestings is a tuple that has access to all the defined nestings that we have in this, and in this instance is the class 2. So this makes it strongly typed. So if you were to rename this, this will break and give you a clear error, so we can find that. And also it's possible for us in the future to track this in induced by and other logic. So this is one way to actually list all, we get a tuple of action objects here. And where we're going to show them, I'm going to add a nesting, and say since this is a tuple, it won't have a specific type, and I'm going to leave it like this, which means derived type from the referring column. And having done that, I can get the properties of this tuple, which is the action name, as one. So I'm going to take the action name and have that as a column here. So I'm going to call this one actions, and let's see how that turns up here. Okay, I was pretty sure that I had updated this, but I'm not. No, okay. So this is version 3.10, and this was added just recently. I should have done it before the meeting, but no problem. Shut it down and unpack it and restart it. Okay, I have something here. Okay, what's the new one? Let's see. So we're on the bleeding edge, so to speak. this doesn't have the error self-nesting clause 2, and okay, so this version of the designer seems to have a problem, so I'm just gonna remember where I am. So open the current model. Okay. And then I'm gonna close down this designer. Apparently I'm using a old version of the designer. Might be in that I've so bear with me a minute. So it's just file lock for those, not a problem. I'm gonna open the stuff that I had here, and I'm gonna alright, so there's really an issue which I haven't seen before. Good, then I know there's one. Gonna work around it by so maybe it's this new feature that isn't fully vetted, so I'm gonna use the old non-preferred way to have the this as a string instead, to verify that we're having that working. Then I'm gonna reiterate to see what's wrong with the other one. Now I'm restarting the server. Then I don't need the edit mode really. And I'm back. Yes, so what happened now was that I got all the names of the actions from the left side without having the left side available for me. So this is of course a silly example, just listing the names. That won't help us much, but we have other possibilities on this as well. Let's remake this as a list view instead by turning this into a placing container in 2 levels like this, column and row, and putting this one here. That makes this as single placeable controls. And then we could add a new generic column that has the sort of yeah, we could say, is it enabled or not? So we can check that and call that column enabled.
You can actually have your action name as a label on the on your action code. Yeah, there. If you want it to be just basically like a row or like a column of action.
Yeah, so I'm just gonna go through the possibilities here to see if now we know if the action is enabled or not, and of course they are all enabled all the time because I haven't had any rules for that. But suppose that I want to execute this action then with a button here, then I could add a an action column, and then we have the self VM action execute action, and that takes the nesting name and the action name. So the nesting name was sent along with the action object, and also self the action name. So I can do it like that and save. And now these actions will actually perform the thing that they have. So they will do everything the left side did, but without having the left side. And of course, since this is the normal logic, I could repackage this grid and have it any way I like. Of course, we can make this better looking by saying that the label should actually show the action name, and we do that by calling this the same as the action column underscore label, stating that this should actually be a label for this action column. So then we have the name on this button, and then we can sort of say that we are not interested to see this as standalone, so we should set it as a non-visible. And then let's see what happens if we have a rule on the actions for enable. So let's say that add y has a rule, and that says that attribute 1 is null or empty. So this must be true for us to be able to add a y. We do this just to verify that the enable seems to work. So the enable works, but this button isn't respecting that because we haven't told it. It's a feature to be able to execute actions even if their enable rules aren't available with the can or with the execute action. So that's why we added the can execute option. So for this specific control, we could add a disable expression. But that's hard because the disabled expressions is rooted in the root of the view module, so that view model. So that's why we added the ability to have read-only per grid row. And we did that by saying following the same pattern, action column, which is the name of the action that we want to control, and we call that read only. But what we want to do in that is we could do it like this, self-enable, because we are on the action object, so that's good, but we need to invert it because it is read only and this is enabled, so that's inverted to each other. So now it's not read only. Okay, and this one should be yeah, maybe that doesn't work for actions. let's check the wiki, what it says. I'm not sure that I have that correct in my head. Underscore read only. So the read only expression. So I'm gonna make a note of this. I'm not sure why this wouldn't have been this should be disabled, of course. I know we have this ability for the read-only thing, but maybe that only works for edit boxes. So if I were to put an edit box of some kind here, just to verify. No, let's do that now. But so I'm gonna make a note of that, because the read-only should really make sure that we can't execute this. Now it won't do it anyway.
Maybe you should try to use not read-only, use enabled as a like suffix for
the action name, action column.
Yeah, but I don't think we have
I'm just looking into the source code right now.
Enable or enabled?
Enabled with a D in the end.
Okay, let's see.
No, it didn't help.
Yeah, we're gonna fix that going forward. Read only. Yeah, so having that, one can of course say that this grid should be in its own placing container, so we can do something with it. That could actually be a column, and this column might be one of these that float in parent, and we probably want a set background on that and a button to show it. Just gonna add a action column that says show the show actions. I'm just gonna invert it when I click this, and there's no such variable, so I'm gonna add one. And gonna have this visible expression set to show actions. And I'm gonna call this show actions. So when I click this one, I get the actions up here, and of course there's no background on it, so it doesn't look that good, but I can put a background on this placing container. So I'm going to call that for background, and I'm going to head over to styles in model and create the style. let's call background. And that style is gonna target placing containers at least, and there's gonna be a color on it, and the color is gonna be white. It's gonna call this white. So the fill color of this style targeting the placing container should be white. And yeah, maybe it shows too much, so we could work on that to have it limit its display. But the general idea. So one thing that we could also set, which I mentioned to Alex, Dennis and Lars in the discussion yesterday, is the animations, so that we want this to animate top to bottom. And when I show this, it sort of rolls in like this until I hide it. So working with the placing containers to show them and floating on top can be a good way to provide information to a user on something that has happened and needs their attention. Of course, now this covers the whole screen, and that was not, it depends on what you want really, but if we roll it in from this side instead, from like left to right, yeah, sort of make more sense. But this is an example how we can take the left side menu and replicate it with the model code without too much hassle. And of course, if I was able to get this nesting working, I could do it completely generic, having one view model concentrating on doing this part of replicating the left side menu. I could then lift in that generic left side menu in all my other view models with this way to pull in a different view model altogether, to merge view models. Like we do, yeah, it's we're not going to go into that, but that's a possibility to make it generic, to have all the logic available from the actions programmatically in a specific model. Comments on this, on what's working and what's not working, and what's missing and not and already in place?
Just wanted to add idea about this show actions, is that you can have your button show actions on this page called how this current page called, I'm not sure, the view model that you are right now. And you can set up another sort of view model with all the list of your actions that you have right now as a separate sort of container, and just set the navigation on the button from show actions to that view model, and set that view model can be as a pop-up there. And we have that kind of functionality now that it appears for you as a sort of like a list of actions as a context menu there. If you click on Show Actions. So it's kind of like you do with the model window, but it's in our case it's like a pop-up now, and it works great when you're using, for example, like a list of actions on each row, and you want to have some kind of special list of actions on the row for each row. So yeah, instead of like this construction with a float, you can use that.
Yeah, but I'm not sure that bringing up another view model showing, because then we don't have the context of the first view model that actually has the actions. So need to consider.
But we are going to use like a class actions in this case.
Yeah, for class actions it would be totally okay to yes. But that's a good point. If you if we were to clean this one up and say that we don't want them in a column like this, we want them in a row, and we don't want to see this read only, it should be not visible. Then we have a list of actions like this, and yeah, let's see why it comes up from, we can animate that from the top to bottom. It's way too big, and that's why is that, because this one has yeah, I'm not sure why it's so big, but if we were to remove the background altogether, we get another behavior. So that would be one way of doing it. Of course, a different way of doing it is to not have this as float, but and still the show expression. So when we do it like this, we just show them as a row, and of course you could put that row on top to make it any way you want, and then of course you could style these buttons in a specific strategy. And I was thinking that the tuple for what we pull from for each action, we have the action name, and we have the enabled and the presentation for the action as well. So that's actually much better to have to use the presentation in here instead. So here's the action name. We don't want that as a label. We want the presentation, because in our case it might just look the same. Well, we have the spaces now between add X, because that was not part of the name. And also in the presentation you can do things like adding further information. So in the presentation we could do first use a name, then use as string on the object, and that would give us something like this, that whenever there's a presentation of the default string representation, as we haven't said it, is the class name and then the first textual attribute. And heading back to the model to fix that default presentation to be self attribute 1 only. And it's also a good, always a good practice to set the default representation of the classes because you're gonna want to use it sooner or later. And now we have so both the name of the action and the name of or the presentation of the object available for us. And of course, a better way to talk to the user would be to say, so the name is add x, and then we add 2, and then what we add x to. So having it like that, it would be add x to xyz. And when I do that, it says add x to xyz xx. To get control of how we present things and what we present. But now we have changed a lot of things and we don't have the changed state. So should we look at that to get the, do we think that anything has been updated to, we looked at this briefly yesterday and we didn't get it to work then. The save bar thing, I'm looking at Dennis.
Yeah, you can try, if it's like a new build, you can try to enable it here.
So on this one, I'm setting the tag value of...
It's still not on the wiki?
Yes.
Hidden feature. Beta testing.
Save bar, true.
Yeah, save bar is like one word and true as a value. It's not, it's fine.
I actually responded.
Not all but nice.
Yeah, so that's coming to pull the save bar up here as we've shown before, and we're going to document that in the wiki and make it available as a tag value. Just make sure that save bar, should it be any other casing maybe?
No, it's okay. I mean, maybe it's a difference between core version and the main one, but it's a good question. It should be the same for the normal one and the core version of Turnkey.
Okay. So I'm gonna leave that one for now then. Yeah, so a few things that we discovered tonight was that then the self-VM nestings didn't quite behave as I said it should.
That was the thing I talked about, right? This to get the things, yeah.
And should be should work, but apparently it doesn't, so I'm not gonna stress it. Yeah, it's something with the
I sent you a link. If you want, you can just open it. It's like on one of our test sites where you can just show up the save bar.
Let's see.
Is it something in the browser, this white box?
No,
because we don't have it in Chrome at least.
So I'm gonna open it in Chrome instead. So this is in Edge. I don't know what happened to that one.
Okay. Yes, yeah, you can be on this page, so if you trigger the save state, you see that.
Right. So that's the way that an option to have the save here. So save is normally part of the left side as well. So that's another way to address the things of the left side. Yeah, good. So we should get that working on the normal build and also document it in the wiki so that we could test it too. And
okay.
Yeah, good. But now this is a okay example of this. At least if I remove this and call it class 2 again, just as a string, until I get this working. So what I'm gonna do is do a save as on this and put it in the left side action demo. And having saved that, and I say this to all of us that's gonna add new demos, there's a new feature, save as for merge, and what that does is replaces all the identities of objects, because one problem that I've discovered with merge models is that if I reuse another model and do the merge model of that, and then I merge that into something that has conflicting or already use those identities to something else, it doesn't turn out all that well. So identity has higher priority than naming, but if when we merge and we don't find the identity, we look for the name and then we merge on the names. So it could be a good idea to save this with new IDs like this, and just writing over the old one with this one.
Then that explains why it's been confusing sometimes. That it's like, but it works sometimes, but not other times.
Yeah.
With the marking.
And then I head back to my big screen. Oh my god. Sorry. Let's see if I can get both things on screen. So then I head back to my project connected to the MDriven components project, and I can see that here is the left side actions runtime demo, and I have mistakenly saved it on the wrong level, so I'm going to remove these things. And then I'm just pushing that new example, and syncing it, and that should make it available for me if I'm coming here having a blank model to start with, thinking about showcasing something. I can go to the asset sync, I can re-download the components from GitHub, I can find the mergeables, and here's a good one, left side actions runtime access demo. I can merge this one. And having done that, I back with this example that we just did. I can simply start the server for this, and it says that I must save the model at least once because this doesn't have a name. So I'm going to start it on temp. As D3, pressing play, and browser back usually turns this on, and I have a clean example with that has these features that we just put up in the example. So there's a good infrastructure for us today to do more merge models to get things demoed. And this is, I think, we should make it this our preferred way to communicate examples and complexities to show by example.
Yeah, we should put I guess also something on the wiki to point to this.
Good. All right, we have used up the time. So, is there anything?
A bit of a struggle for you, but it's coming. It's getting there, definitely.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's we don't put that much time into prepare for these things, and it keeps everything honest. This is the way where we are right now, and this is what we do. And but most things work anyway, so it's not a directed set of things.
This is the first time I think we have like action information available like this, right?
Yeah.
Does this also mean that you could basically do like, if you did this on sys singleton, you could basically have every action in the system? On the sys super, you could basically have every class action pouring out.
Yeah, but this it takes its stand in the self VM, so you need to be in a context in order to get the action, because that was the only thing that made sense.
Yeah, I don't know why I was looking for that. I'm just saying that there's, you could access all the actions if you wanted, and process, or filter them, or sort them, or on the other hand, you can do that in the model debugger. So that's better.
But that's true. It would be it's one way to do a self-test of a system, because with the self VM navigate, we can also what we can do is loop through all the actions in a view model and executing them one by one, and reaching that one we could sort of execute those too. So I think we could
make it go round by itself.
Don't know what we would use that for testing server load, maybe.
Yeah, well, that's not actually a bad thing. That would be a testing tool, actually, too, because you could do other things than to access and execute things.
To replicate the user behavior in different ways. All right.
Yes.
Good.
Thank you for the demo.
Yeah. I had some other things on the agenda, but this took the time, so we're gonna keep those for next. Good.
Yeah. we have something to look forward to.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Your hands. Have a good evening, everyone.
Yeah, you too.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, hi. Just a little PS on this because we had some issues during the demo and there was a few bugs. The first one was the problem with this self-VM nesting class 2. Using that caused an error in the validation of the model, and this had to do with this being a derived type from referring column. So this nesting name popped up later than the other two, and that confused the logic a bit. So that is handled now and that works. The other issue was with these placed buttons that we didn't respect the read-only value to actually set the read-only state on the action buttons as we do on all other controls like edit boxes, etc. So read-only should map to a not enable on a button, of course, and that has also been fixed. So if we do and show actions, we see that these are all grayed out because none of them are enabled, because none of these two rows is selected. So I'm going to select one and then all these get enabled, but remember that there was a rule on this one that I can only push it if this string is null or empty, as it is now. So if I use that once, it will turn disabled, and if I change the row it comes back, and if I add an X, this row isn't null or empty anymore, so this is disabled, and that works okay. Yeah, so that was the two major bugs that we saw during the demo, and those are now fixed.